This radio control unit has basically two purposes. One, it offers a step forward in safety, and secondly, more effective operation of our trains. Let me explain a little further. You can radio control a train and do all an engineer can do in the cab, and not be in the cab. Now you are in complete control. Yes, this means more walking, but let's look at it this way. Your train can be coupled, uncoupled, inched into position, and spotted at your own rate, not depending on signals from someone else, allowing you complete control over the safety and efficiency of yourself and others in the area. Head-end protective requirements still apply. Now you will no longer have to worry about the whereabouts of the crew, because you will know when it is safe to move your cars. One more thing. This control unit has been engineered with fail-safe features, such as automatic braking if the unit gets tipped over or you let go of the switches. But we will get into that later in your program. After you view the telecast, there will be an instructor available who will give you additional information and will answer any questions you may have. By this time, you have already passed the basic requirements to become a train operator. You've had 2 weeks of switchman's training and have passed a physical examination. In addition, your remote operator's training will consist of testing and field instruction in the use of remote controls, which will enable you to operate a remote locomotive safely and skillfully. Remote control locomotive movement is accomplished through the use of a sophisticated system of electronics and pneumatics. The actual system you will be using was especially designed for our type of work. It consists of a transmitter box that is carried on a harness, which you will wear while working. The case itself is made of molded plastic to reduce weight, and the controls have been designed for ease and convenience of use. Probably the one question most people ask about the remote system is just how safe is it? First of all, it is only as safe as you care to make it. This is always the primary concern when using any kind of new electrical or mechanical equipment, especially the size and type we will be working with. Secondly, the unit itself has some safety features that provide added protection. Let's first take a closer look at the transmitter itself, since this will be your most familiar contact with remote control. The remote transmitter has 7 separate control functions. Operation of these give you complete control of all the movements and operations a locomotive can perform. Their proper operation will depend upon you using the controls in the correct sequence. Let's review. The throttle brake lever, the dead man lever for system activation, the guard switch and RF keys, which in effect are on-off switches, the horn switch, the uncouple switch, available for future use if necessary, the sand switch, and the directional control for forward or reverse. Now that you've had a first glance at the remote transmitter, let's break away for a minute and talk about your part of the operation. You are not alone when beginning your training. You'll work with an experienced operator who, when he feels you are ready to solo, will recommend you be allowed to operate on your own. At this time, you will be issued a train operator's certification card, and you'll be given your first assignment. Of course, at the beginning of the work turn, you must prepare yourself safety-wise. Safety shoes, flame retardant clothing, hand protection, hard hat, and safety glasses with side shields. All of your equipment should be in top condition. You've outfitted yourself properly. Your turn begins by relieving your buddy on the job. This is a good time to exchange ideas and information about any problems experienced on the previous turn. Now it's your turn. You must make sure you have a safe job environment in which to work. You do this in several ways. You come to work with an understanding of your job and how it's done. Bring with you general knowledge of safe job procedures so you can perform your job safely. Inspect your engine and equipment for proper working conditions. Look at the safety equipment. Check the railings, steps. Fuel supply and couplers. Look at everything that may affect your ability to work safely. Especially all of the items listed on your inspection form. You will notice on your locomotive that there are some new items to inspect. These pertain to remote control, such as this emergency stop button, which overrides the remote system stopping the locomotive, the remote manual transfer switch, special cabinets housing the new RC equipment. A safety reset button to activate after going from manual to remote. The red-green mode indicator lights, red for stop, green for movement. And the safety strobe, a red flasher, which works in the direction of travel. To complete your inspection, you must install a freshly charged battery on your transmitter. This ensures a strong signal for the turn. Now switch the engine to remote control. Release the engine brakes. Place the transfer switch from manual to remote and push the safety reset button. Your locomotive is now ready to be used remote. See that each control on your transmitter operates correctly, as you will depend on this when you begin work. Now that you feel your equipment is ready for use, fill out your inspection form and turn it in to your supervisor. Let's go over the operation of each control and become familiar with the transmitter at this time. Two controls activate the electronics in the transmitter, the RF key and the guard switch. These two must be turned on for any other control to work. If either the key or the switch are turned off, the entire system will lose power. The dead man lever is the most important control on your transmitter. This lever must be held off center at all times for any movement to be made. This safety feature assures that when you want to move your locomotive, that you are at the controls full time and aware of actions taking place. The dead man also activates the bell automatically, relieving you of that chore. If an emergency situation arises, you can release this lever to off just by letting go, and the locomotive will automatically come to a stop. One thing to understand is the dead man must not be used as a brake. Under normal circumstances and prolonged use of the dead man as a brake, it can cause damage to wheels and traction motors. You cannot change directions when moving. The engine must be brought to a stop with brakes applied to prevent any damage to the traction motors. The direction control switch provides for forward or reverse travel with one lever. If centered, your locomotive is considered to be in neutral and will not move. Here we see the lever in the forward mode. The throttle brake lever is the workhorse of your transmitter unit and is the control used to accelerate or brake the locomotive. The lever is graduated in stages, giving additional throttle when pushed down, from idle to full power. When pulled back, brakes apply from light brakes to full stop. With some experience, you will be able to fine-tune your movements and find that you have precise control over your locomotive. Other controls on your transmitter include the sander, necessary for extra traction, and the horn switch, used as a warning device. The dead man switch must be in an off-center position for other controls to function. This is one of the most important safety features on the unit, keeping you in complete control. In time, these controls will become quite familiar to you, but for now, let's go over them again. The RF key. This key, when turned on, powers the transmitter. It can be compared to the ignition key in your automobile. The guard switch interlocks with RF key, making it necessary for both to be in the on position for the unit to be activated. The direction control switch provides a positive lock for desired direction of travel for the engine. If a change of direction is necessary, brakes must be applied and the locomotive stopped. The throttle brake switch controls engine speed and the amount of braking. Pushing the lever away from you accelerates the engine. Pulling it toward you slows the engine until fully stopped. The center position allows the engine to coast. The lever is graduated to indicate the amount of throttle or braking. The horn switch in the forward position sounds the horn and shuts off when released. Notice that the uncouple switch has not been installed at this time. When the need arises, the control will be added. The sand switch, held forward, releases sand in the direction of travel and stops when released. Applying the remote system to the actual job situation can be challenging, yet satisfying if done correctly. Let's go to work and see just what can be done. You'll still receive your work orders in the same manner, via radio. Attention must be paid to transmissions so that you are fully aware of your work area's activities. All the equipment that was handled with a manual control locomotive can be handled with a remote. Cars, such as ingot buggies, molds, stools, heats, will be part of your everyday work. Also, during your workday, notice safety items that apply to remotes. Use these to pattern your safe work habits and incorporate them into your daily job procedures. Entering the mold preparation yard requires attention to clearances of equipment sidetracked in the area. Unprepared sets of molds are worked in this area, and timely movement is an important part of your job. Here the operator lines the switch for number 3 track and prepares to pull a set of molds from the platform. On receiving the green light, giving permission to enter the building, the set of work molds can be pulled from the platform. Prepared sets of molds can go to either melt shop to be poured into. You will be informed of the shop where the molds are needed. Moving these sets of molds requires your constant attention to check for bad order equipment and off-center molds, preventing derails and fall-offs. Here's a situation you must avoid. Caught in between mold sets without an escape can be fatal. Leave yourself an exit. With a remote, you can position yourself in the clear and be able to watch your entire set of cars from a safe location. Due to the length of the drag, the head end must also be protected. Watch for traffic and congestion, especially where tracks cross or come near roadways. It's your responsibility to protect your equipment. We see our operator putting himself in a bad situation. Parked sets of molds can be a hazard should an engine couple from the opposite end. Standing this close to the molds, if they should move, you wouldn't have time to avoid being hit and injured. Keep at least 10 feet from the end of any equipment to avoid any surprise movement. When your drag precedes your locomotive and a number of buggies makes it hard to watch the head end from the deck of the locomotive, walk ahead of the equipment. One alternative to walking is to run around the equipment and pull the drag. This actually may be more work than the walking would involve, but you must make the decision to do your job in the most effective way. While you travel to your destination and sidetrack your molds, look around and check the condition of your area for other crews working, tracks out of service, and tripping hazards, bearing in mind that conditions change on a daily basis. Here our operator shows us the correct way to uncouple using a remote engine. Staying in the clear, maintaining balance, and watching locomotive movement. When it's required for you to pull a heat from one of the steel shops, your remote allows you to keep in the clear of splashing metal. Also keep in mind all